The average solo GP is dead. Being handcuffed to a practice that only makes money while you're drilling crushes your freedom. Being trapped at the office is no way to experience life. And doing more fillings and crowns ain't the answer to freedom. Stop it. Freedom comes when your practice makes money without you. Freedom is choosing how many days and how you dental. Ready to forge your freedom? Then keep listening to become a super GP and super CEO. This is the Titanium Practice Podcast with your host, Dr. Stephen Freeman. Let's go.
Hello again, all you beautiful people. Welcome back to the Titanium Practice Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Stephen Freeman. Thanks for joining us again today for another amazing episode where you're just going to learn a ton of stuff. Today, we are talking about how you should be looking at the finances of your business. I used to be very top line driven when I looked at the statement sheet for my office. I used to think that revenue was everything. The more revenue you brought in, the more profit you'd have, the more happiness you'd have, the more people would find me attractive. I mean, you name it, that's what revenue meant to me. It was also, things have changed a lot in how dental offices are valued these days. For a long time, it was simply a function of what was your revenue? What did you bring in? And they gave you a percentage of that. You know, if you have a shitty little practice, they'd give you like 60% of it. If you got a pretty nice practice, they'd give you 80% of it. And then you start bumping above like $4 million and they were giving you more than 100% of whatever your revenue was. And so I knew for a very long time that what I was trying to do, I was trying to create a business that I could sell. That's what I wanted to do. My philosophy has changed on that. I now look at it more of I'm trying to create a business that I never want to sell. That's why I talk about creating these relationships with people, be it your team members, be it your patients. Just make it a place that I want to go to, spend time, and enjoy. But that's a whole nother podcast. But what I really was focusing on years ago was just the fact of I wanted to drive revenue so that I could have something that I could turn around and sell for a shitload of money. It turns out that when private equity entered the arena, they were focused much more essentially on profit. Okay, you probably have heard the term EBITDA before, and we're not really talking too much today about EBITDA, but just basically generally the idea of you need to be focused on the profitability of the practice in order to get the valuation that you are looking for. So along the way, stumbled upon a book called Profit First by Michael Michalowicz. Some of you may have heard this before, and generally you'll hear the story again of what we're about to tell, you know, if you've heard all of this before, but the idea is just the fact that what you're focusing on your business is the profit. The money you take home above and beyond what you get from dentaling. So the idea is that if you can get this number big enough and you're happy with that number, well then if you want to sell your business, then you're going to make a huge valuation and you're going to make a ton of money from it and you can sell your business. But for those who want to hold on to the practice but maybe not even want to actually dental at all, then you have the ability to say, well, I know what my income is going to be if I never touch that handpiece again in my life. And it's a powerful feeling. It's really cool when you look at that number and you say, I can live on that. I'm happy with that. I don't need to be dentaling in order to make a comfortable living for my family. It's really freaking cool. And so when you switch from focusing on revenue to focusing on profits, it really is a game changer. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. It changes how you go about almost every little thing that you do in the office. Okay? So step one for everything is always, and I keep saying it, relationships. Build relationships with these people in your lives, in the office, in the community. But step two is focusing on profits. The simple kind of overview on all of this is that you're going to reverse engineer how you do everything. For me, I kind of said, okay, I want to make X amount of money. What do I need to do? What do my expenses need to be so that I can take home X? But it's this idea of paying yourself first so that you can get to where you want to go. It does not matter if you have a practice doing $5 million a year if your overhead's $5 million a year. You don't have a profitable practice. Now, you might be taking some money home because you might be dentaling up a storm, but the actual profitability of the practice is zero, and that's not a great practice. I'd much rather have a practice that's profiting 20% of $1 million, $200,000, and instead of having a practice that's profiting nothing off of it. Okay, so it is not about revenue, it's focusing on profits. And you're going to pay yourself first through this. Okay, but I used to think that revenue was the answer. So if that's kind of your mindset right now and how you've always thought about things, don't kick yourself about it, just change it and know that you need to be focusing on profits rather than revenue. Okay, cash flow is king in your office. You can pay any bill as long as you can cash flow that bill. Everyone's had bills that come out of nowhere. Just last week, let's see, I needed to buy a new server. That server is going to be about $17,000. And then miraculously, 2 of my implant motors went dead the exact same week. I do not know how that is possible. And yet somehow it happened. And we're getting a discount. So we're getting $500 off each one. So they're going to be $5,500 a piece. So whether it's $11,000 plus a $17,000 server, $28,000 just dropped in my lap. Awesome. I'm so glad that I get to pay those bills, but it's okay. We're going to cash flow that, and we know how to make that happen because we have a firm understanding of our expenses. And I know that I'm going to be paying myself first. So I know I'm still going to be getting paid. So, it's okay. It sucks. I'd rather not pay the $28,000, but off we go. All right. But you need to understand how a dollar flows through your office. And you can really go down a rabbit hole with this, and you can really spend a lot of time, and you can delve into all the minutia you want with it. I am not a minutia guy. I am a broad idea guy, so I like to know my general percentages for things, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I know how much a 2x2 costs and how many 2x2s were sitting on a tray. That's not me, and I'm never going to do that, and that's fine. But I think generally speaking, you need to know how a dollar is flowing through your office, what percentage is going to your lab, what percentage is going for supplies, things like that. So I think that is crucial to understand, and that is part of where this profit first comes from. Okay, so as I said, we're going to kind of reverse engineer things, but really how we make this happen is that you're going to have to set up multiple bank accounts. So my business has 8 bank accounts in it. And when you first hear it, you're just like, that is absolutely crazy. Why would I have so many bank accounts in order to run my business? Well, ideally speaking, hopefully you've got at least $1 million business going on. Hopefully you have a multi-million-dollar business. And if you let me help you, you'll absolutely have a multi-million-dollar business. So you need to be able to have different places to put that cash so you know how it can be deployed in order to meet your expenses and, more importantly, meet your profit as well. So my 8 accounts, bills, I've got an insurance account, I've got a culture account. So the culture account would have things like we do for fun. When we talk about those experiences come out of that fund. If we buy lunch for everybody, the end of the year party comes out of that. So that's what comes out of the culture fund for us. I take my personal taxes out of there. So all the disbursements that you're taking, You're going to be paying at least a third of that amount you take in your disbursements. You don't want a surprise every quarter or yearly of saying, hey, you owe this amount of money, and you took all that money home and you thought you made all this money, and all of a sudden, no, sorry, you owe a third of that amount to Uncle Sam, because that's just a bad day and no one likes to have those. So I actually overfund that account because I want to make sure that I've got more than I think I need in there. So that would be for your personal taxes. Business taxes. This kind of varies. Some of you may not own your building yet, and so therefore you may not even need to have the business taxes. But I've got, a big old building with some land on it, and so I get my county real estate taxes. I also have something called tangible property tax, where they get to tax me yet again for having all the cool stuff that I have in my office, even though I paid taxes on it even to get it. So I won't use this as a bitch session for taxes, but I've got some big tax liabilities every single year, so I make sure I put money away for that. My mortgage, my actual building that we're getting closer to paying off here, which is cool. I put my payroll away. So generally speaking, I set it up so that I go with what should be a high payroll number, and I run payroll twice a month. So I used to do it where, it was just every 2 weeks, but we do it on the 15th and the 30th of every month. What's nice about that is that if you just do it every 2 weeks, sometimes you'll find that you have one payroll in a month and 3 in another month, but you can't really control the money that's coming in and out of your office as easily. It's just harder to track if 1 month you've got this gigantic bill that's dropped in your lap, and then another month you have a third of that dropped in your lap. I mean, you can't possibly be able to control the dollars that are flowing through your office if it's that erratic, because your payroll is going to be your business expense after taxes, and it fluctuates incredibly. So we do it the 15th and the 30th, and I basically just take what I think is going to be a high payroll, divided in, I divide it over the course of the weeks, over 52 weeks, and we just put that money away every single week. So that's what happens. All that money just goes into the account. And most of the time I'm correct that I overfunded it, but I'd much rather overfund it than underfund it and have a surprise at the end of the day with that. And then finally, the all-important profit account, what you are going to be taking home. So all of these accounts, you are going to be putting money into of your best guess of what you think those amounts are going to be every single month. So like all my insurances, we've got the professional liability insurance, the insurances on the building, the insurance for in the building, the insurance for the parking lot, the insurances for the health insurance for my employees, the liability insurance for my other associates. All that stuff goes in there, and I know what that monthly number is. And you just take that monthly number and, you get a yearly number, and then we divide it by 52, and you just put that amount away every single week. And you just do this, you just do it automatically. Set an automatic deductions so that money is pouring out of, and I apologize, actually I have 9 accounts, and I just said it, is that I have an operating account. I completely forgot about the operating account. So I guess it's 8 sub-accounts and then the main operating account. So all the money gets deposited in that main operating account, and then it gets deducted and transferred automatically into those sub-accounts that I mentioned: the bills, the insurance, the culture, personal taxes, business taxes, profit, mortgage, and payroll. So I'm sorry I didn't even start out with that. You're going to have a main operating account and then all those sub-accounts. And then that money is just going to automatically be deducted and transferred into those accounts as we roll along. For my bills, I take all my bills that I have, everything from the utilities to the lawn mowing, to everything. And I just deduct a little bit. So when that bill comes in, I know I've already paid that bill, essentially. It's already sitting in the bills account. And so when either the check goes out or the credit card runs, I know that I've already taken care of that. I do my credit cards a little differently. I have essentially, I have a set amount that I pay towards my credit card every week, and I do 2 payments a week to that credit card. So and then that way you can kind of control, again, how your expenses are going out. So, let's say that you want to keep your expenses on the credit card to $20,000 a month. So roughly speaking, that is going to be set up so that you've got $5,000 that goes out a week, because roughly 4 weeks in a month. And then you're going to have 2 payments each of $2,500 in a week. So you do 2 $2,500 payments a week, and then you end up with your credit card completely paid off every single month. So that's how I never have a balance on my credit card. That's set up a little differently than the bills. But at the same time, that's a way for you to be able to manage your credit card bills so that you don't get to the end of the month and again have a big surprise and say, I thought my bills were going to be, $8,000 this month, and it turns out that they're more like $12,000 this month. I mean, that just sucks. I mean, it just makes you feel bad. I mean, there's no other way to describe that. And this system of having these sub-accounts where the money gets taken out incrementally over time, so you're paying for it, you got your property taxes taken care of, you got your personal taxes taken care of, where this stuff is being covered, you can then be able to see how that dollar flows through the office. You can see that your bills are being taken care of. You can see that your credit card is not, I set up, I don't charge anything about it. All my bills are paid by somebody else, and they just go. And now I check them, to quote Ronald Reagan, trust but verify, of the fact that I make sure that we're staying within these certain parameters that we have set up. But I'm not doing any of this. Either they're automatic withdrawals or somebody else is paying those bills, but you put those barriers up and you put those guidelines up and make sure that the people are following them. And it really, really helps curtail any ridiculous spending that is happening elsewhere. So at the end of the day, this really just kind of creates a great deal of focus for you. It creates a great deal of discipline too. If we don't put barriers up, you can almost just think of this as if you have a gas and you let a gas into a giant room, it will take up all of that space over time. But if you put it in a container, you confine it to a particular area within that room or space. You make sure that it's not going crazy and just kind of taking over your life and taking over on the things that you do. I guarantee you, just by focusing on it, anything you focus on will improve. If you're focusing on your expenses will go down. If your expenses go down, your profits will go up. It's how it works. So all of these things, every time that we have a podcast, every time we have a topic of discussion, if you're focusing on this, whatever thing it is that we're talking about, I guarantee you it'll improve. It's great. All of this will improve. And as these things improve, when the profits improve, when we talk about focusing on culture, when we talk about any of these things, all of those things will improve and your stress is going to go down. These are the baby steps. All of this stuff are the steps that we take to create a business that you'll never want to sell. Or if you do choose to sell it, they'll know that you've been focusing on things like, hey, we've been focusing on our profits. We've been trying to create a business that's as appealing to somebody else as possible so they will give us maximum value for it when we go to cash out on this thing. So anything you focus on is going to improve, and this is a fantastic way to improve your profits. Okay? So again, set up some sub-accounts. All right? So you're going to have your main operating account, and then I have 8 sub-accounts. The bills, insurance, culture, the 2 tax accounts, the profit account, the mortgage account, and the payroll account, to make sure that you are just taking those little bits of money out. You set just the same as those other sub-accounts, that profit account, you're going to set your number. What do you want it to be? Choose what you want it to be. And, at the end of the day, obviously, if you choose some ridiculous number, then your expenses are going to be pretty damn high, and you got to figure out how to actually pay for that profit. But at the same time, you're dictating that number. And if you know what you want that number to be, you can just reverse engineer this whole thing. Just reverse engineer the whole thing. Maybe that means we need to be cutting back on lab some. Maybe that means we need to be cutting back on supplies some. And we'll go over all of that. What are your benchmarks? What is it that you should be at to make sure that we are making this as profitable as possible? But I'll bet the vast majority of you have no idea how a dollar flows through your office. You have none at all. And that's fine if you don't want a profitable business. And you may say that's not for me. And you may also say I don't have time to do that. Fine. I can totally live with that. And that is why we're here, because we are trying to focus on how to create more freedom for you. How do you create more freedom for yourself? You get yourself from doing mundane, normal, general dentistry, fillings and crowns into doing specialized work that creates so much more revenue that you're able to get out of the chair more, and now you're able to work on the business and maybe completely replace yourself over time so that you can be focusing on these things to create a more profitable business, so that you can actually take time to actually know how. When I was doing general dentistry, I had no idea how a dollar flowed through my office. You kidding me? I was tired. I was done. I was hunched over. Heard that damn drill rolling in my ear all day long. Listen to the, patient bitch about, I'm not numb on this particular tooth and the saliva and the whatever. I mean, you know it. I don't need to tell you. How do you sit down and focus on profits after that? It's real tough to do. It's very tough to do. And you finally maybe get your day off on Friday. There's a beautiful day. Fuck profits. I'm going to go home. I'm going to go play with my kids, play with my friends, go do something fun. I'm not going to focus on this stuff. So that's why it's so important for you to get in a position where we're freeing up your time so that you can focus on these things, because it's really important and it can make you a ton of money, and it doesn't cost you any money. You just need to be intentional about it. You need to focus on it, because if you're not focusing on it, it's not going to work. That's all. Okay, so we become a super GP, then we become a super CEO, and then you can do whatever you want and you got great profits. It's a very simple blueprint. It's a very simple plan to get you where you need to be. Okay? If you are struggling with any of the things that we talk about in any of these podcasts, you can head on over the Titanium Practice podcast. We've got some group coaching there. We have some one-on-one coaching there. We'd love to have you over there. Great community to talk about these things. A lot of smart folks beyond just myself. But we love having you here on these podcasts, and we will have another one coming up for you shortly, okay? So behave you out there, you knuckleheads, and we will see you on our next show. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.
You've been listening to the Titanium Practice Podcast with your host, Dr. Stephen Freeman. Please hit the like and subscribe button and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Titanium Practice. Questions or comments? Send an email to info@titaniumpractice.com. Join us next time to help turn your average practice into a titanium practice.